Though a titanic triumvirate rocked the nascent stealth genre from toes to titties in the year of our Garrett 1998, it was still precisely that. Nascent, a nebulous, formless fucking thought, given occasional essence through the most brilliant moments of Thief the Dark Project, Tenchu Stealth Assassins, and some giant robot game I'm sure will go absolutely goddamn nowhere. But with the benefit of hindsight, what occurred was a watershed realignment of fundamental gaming paradigms. In place of the first-person pew-pew shooter, the first-person sneaker had been born in Thief. In place of the third-person platformer, the starkly atmospheric assassination scenarios of Tenchu. And in lieu of a text crawl and the occasional cinematic standing in for story, Metal Gear's maudlin melodrama of thermonuclear mech supremacy set a cinematic, albeit linear, standard we wish to Christ the industry would tear itself away from 20 titty fucking years later. So flagrant a fucking shift, it took a year or two to truly comprehend what had actually occurred, and more importantly, for the rest of the industry to even begin attempting to catch the fuck up. And while 2000's Thief 2 The Metal Age not only perfected the formula, but stands today as a top 5 effort in any fucking genre, that same year gave gamers the first proper evolution of the soon-to-be stealth genre. Hitman, with the needless Codename 47 appellation in tow, presumably to confuse the fuck out of the 5 carbon-based lifeforms that actually played the thing at fucking launch. Though undoubtedly inspired by its ancestors of 2 years previous, here was a game owing an arguably greater debt to the unsung stealth gameplay of the console shooter to end them all, goddamn GoldenEye. Not that IO Interactive have made any particular secret of their erstwhile inspirations, but plunk your ass down and watch a few. From the Milkman Massacre in both Hitman 2 Silent Assassin and The Living Daylights, to the ICA logo being a damn near one-to-one mimeograph of MI5, Bond worship abounds in Hitman and persists into the present, with even the most recent Hitman reboot trilogy sporting outfits, gadgets, and even quotes from secret agent extraordinaire James Bond. And distilled to his essence, that's really what Hitman is. Bald. James Bond. Albeit a slightly more cloned, incrementally more murderous variant. But anyone who used the fucking face maker in the 1998 Mission Impossible game to Aretha Franklin your fucking way through the super spy proceedings one outfit change at a time knows there's more than a microbe of Ethan Hunt in his ass as well. The gameplay iterates naturally from there. In lieu of hyperlinearity and hallway after hallway of suffocating pseudo-stealth, right from game one, IO Interactive were sending you out into assassination sandbox with limited intel, limited ammo, and often even improvised weaponry, and allowing the player to determine how he does the dirty deed. But it wasn't a pretty one. With bowling shoe ugly graphics even compared to early Dreamcast titles of the period, and an interface that feels jimmy-rigged together out of burlap sacks and fucking fishing twine, it was clear that while the core concept was a winner, the execution was more botched than Sumner Redstone's eye job. But make no mistake, within its appropriate context, Hitman 1 was well the fuck advanced. Of particular note is the masterful, mysterioso synthscapes of uber genius Jesper Kid. Refined or fucking not, the game's greatness owes an immeasurable debt to the faraway, not quite real twin pistol poetry, punctuated by a soundtrack I can only describe as audial hypnotism. While it's not quite as haunting or ambitious as his later offerings, it stands utterly apart as perhaps the most polished single aspect of the inaugural Hitman title. Codename 47 may be refined as rock salt, basic butt fucking movement may feel like breakdancing with your goddamn elbows, but the artistry, the atmosphere, the sublime Euro Eurotrash inclination for faux profundity is here as advertised, every bit as abundant as in any other entry of the series. A good effort whose mechanics pull it back just shy of the precipice of greatness. 3 bald heads with barcodes out of 5. The Hitman formula was germinating, albeit on fairly fallow ground, before the bona fide stealth explosion of the early aughts. By 2002, the infiltration inclined would have their pick of the litter, with fresh entries in the Thief, Tenchu, and Metal Gear Solid series, and new challenger Splinter Cell SWAT turning into the increasingly crowded fray. But a bulbous, shorn-skulled assassin was emerging on the horizon, and while everyone else was making noise, he preferred the cold caress of silence. Here's where the carotid artery meets the fucking fiber wire, my friends. Right the fuck here with Hitman 2, Silent Assassin. Almost all the familiar elements commonly identified as Hitman can be found in this formative near-fucking masterpiece of paid assassination and social stealth. From keyhole creep into non-lethal anesthetics to the advent of the patented cue ball crouch walk and the oh-so-familiar real-time satellite map system, Hitman 2 Senior is everything its grandpappy codename 47 was reaching for and blowing its biomodified lumbar out due to teething problems and more engine issues than a waterlogged Prius. Or for that matter, a Prius under ideal conditions. The 2-year gap and resultant leap to an all-new hardware generation facilitated an impressive graphical upgrade as well, with a lumpy-faced fucknut 47 model of the previous game replaced with the svelte Bruce Willis doppelganger we know and love today, though the other player models still look like the troglodytic result of a casting call at a fucking leper colony. But as the title suggests, Hitman 2's greatest contribution, ironically given yet another stellar soundtrack by Jesper Kyd, was silence. Non-lethal knockout options, suppressed pistols, and the permanent presence of the piano wire, binoculars, and other assorted homicidal paraphernalia that are traditionally applied to those who run afoul of the fucking Clintons provided alternate playstyles where previously the only option would be assault and immediate flight. The United Airlines approach, if you will. And if the first game prostrated itself at the octopussy-plated altar of James Bond, the second entry was The Spy Who Gagged Me, with numerous in-game references and at least one outright remake of an assassination scenario from the opening of The Living Daylights. Hitman 2 managed to skirt filmic set pieces and stealth tension with an aptitude few of its contemporaries can claim. Indeed, upon hearing the welcome news that IO Interactive will soon be rebooting Bond for modern consoles and PCs, upon playing Hitman 2, I knew sight unseen they'd almost certainly do it justice. But it ain't all bald heads and bloom here. Hitman 2's added features often came at the cost of cluttering up an already clunky control scheme, while the missions, visionary and memorable as they are, also graduated summa cum laude in fucking frustration. 3.5 bald barcode heads out of 5. We were moving in the right direction for a fucking fact, and the record-setting series sales figures reflected it, but for every welcome improvement, an infuriating step backward. Next. After the earth-crushing kick-assery of the second entry and financial rewards incumbent upon such success, IO were faced with a fork in the road, with freshly pressed plastic bricks heralding the ascent of an all-new, all-pointless console pissing contest, but not so close they could keep their thumbs parked in their poopers until they actually arrived. The operative question was confounding in its fucking simplicity. Stand pat and pinch out a marginally improved iteration of the already excellent series, or wait for 15-year-olds to sell enough smack on the side to save up
$599 US
so they might avail themselves of an all-new era of gaming technology. And then there was the matter of the first fucking game, which kicked all kinds of ass, but was relegated to a goddamn dust magnet by virtue of the fact it was ahead of its fucking time and admittedly flawed. The solution? Address all of the above. What emerged was simultaneously an all-new Hitman adventure and a soft remake of the unjustly ignored Hitman codename 47 to tide the homicidal hordes over until the PS360 hit the scene with 50 flavors of fucking bloom to blow out your occipital cortex. The decision was inspired, as the resulting Hitman Contracts was so goddamn good, most motherfuckers didn't even realize Hitman ever got a remake, let alone that they actually played it, albeit one that amplifies the until now understated artsy cum fucking fartsy fallibilities of previous efforts, arguably to the point of pretense, with each mission bracketed by cinematic sequences where 47, on the brink of death following a near-fatal gunshot wound, might I add, contemplates the meaning of mortal existence, conversing with the ghosts of his many victims in a bleach-white ethereal fart cloud, while some obese Italian broad sings Oprah over top. Hey, you wanna cut it the fuck out with the meditation music and screensavers there, Ingmar Bergman? The most artistic pursuit in this game is donning a tuxedo mask costume to drop rat poison in some dude's crack pipe and sending him chasing the dragon off a goddamn cliff. You can probably cool it with the fucking Tchaikovsky concertos. While I'd played previous entries in fits and starts, it's the unfairly underrated Contracts that seized me by the balls and persuaded a young, incrementally less jaded Razorfist that Agent 47 was well deserving of his place alongside the Garretts, the Sam Fishers, and the Solid Snakes in the clandestine annals of stealth gaming supremacy. 4.5 barcode bedecked melons out of 5. Now we're fucking talking. If it could have improved the still clunky control scheme just a Tumblr click or two, this would probably be the game every Hitman fan would name check at the first mention of the fucking franchise. And speaking the fuck of which... For every franchise, a singular magic moment where all the promise is realized, the rough edges shorn away, and the level design lunges to new heights, all wrapped in a plot with personal stakes and a strong supporting cast Razor Force. I give you Hitman Blood Money, a sleeper stealth masterpiece that, fittingly, snuck its way onto 6th and 7th gen consoles, courting comparatively minimal accolades after its best-selling fucking forebears, but over the years, steadily, silently, as assuredly as the genetically crafted killing machine that stars in the fucking thing, Blood Money became the Deus Ex of stealth sandboxes, blowing away the entire series before and fucking since for the sheer excellence, immersion, and inventiveness of its memorable missions. After an unctuous tutorial sequence that sadly would prove prophetic given the future direction of the franchise, the game opens up, and unlike prior entries where a walkthrough was sometimes required for the mere act of isolating what the front flippin' fuck you're even doing here, the programmers plop you just outside the gates of a mobster's mansion, at least 3 usable disguises within reach, and each and every one attached to a person. Have fucking fun, folks! From Chile, where 47 kicks some cartel ass, to curtains down, a Parisian opera house virtually begging to be turned into a fucking murder factory, or the oft-forgotten Flatline, where the cue-balled killer must infiltrate an overpriced fucking rehab facility and engineer ever more imaginative accidents to tie up loose ends for the political class, which at the risk of overselling it, remains the finest fucking Arkansas simulator this side of a Ghislaine Maxwell weightlifting session. And then there's the complete curveball, a new life. You've infiltrated Arctic military bases, slinked your way through social functions, parties, and even disrupted a fucking triad negotiation, but are you mentally and rectally prepared for the mind-shredding horrors of an idyllic American upper-middle-class neighborhood? That That's it, folks. Your target's a made man turned glowy goddamn snitch for the FBI. Find and finish his wop ass using any means of disguise, booby trap, or subterfuge at your fucking disposal. Like Vosh at a child beauty pageant, I could gush all goddamn day. The story's sensational. The 7th gen graphics, though rickety by modern standards, stand up well over 15 years later. And best of all, those clunky controls finally got the tune-up, tire rotation, and quickie lube we'd been begging for. 5 out of 5. Fucking play it! But with the legendary status Blood Money boasts today still materializing on the autismal tracks of 4chan, sales suffered in the interim. Silent Assassin set sales records for the series and Stealth as a whole, and sadly, the money men were growing impatient for a fucking repeat. Worse still, something else happened after Blood Money's launch. The slow exsanguination of Eidos, meaning those money men we were just rapping about now spoke Japanese. For in 2007, every Eidos property from Deus Ex to Thief was subsumed by Square Enix, who, far from the halcyon days of their PS1 era extravagance, had slowly transmogrified from offbeat JRPG brain trust to the guys who fucked up Final Fantasy. But after an excellent opening volley in Deus Ex Human Revolution, would the second product of Squeenix's American expansion prove an ideal East-West synthesis or a transcontinental cock-flattening for a franchise best left clean the fuck alone? It feels like an eternity since I uttered the mocking eponym Hitman Abomination, but folks, in this case, eternity is not nearly long enough. You could stack 15 fucking forevers atop each other in a big sweaty soy pile. You still could not pay me enough to endure this insult to one of the finest stealth series ever devised. Whether it's the advent of the obnoxious scoring system affixed to the upper left of the screen, distilling all your intricate planning and painstaking execution into lol hidden body 200 points, or the obnoxious over-explainery of the trite tutorial sequences explaining in blinding detail every action from crouching to moving to pausing to pinch fucking turd. Every imbecilic movement of modern game design appeared present and accounted for with the hot fucking mess of the Hitman franchise, and it even spawned a fair few of its own. Hitman Abomination was arguably the Pearl Harborian event that touched off the 20-teens turbo-trite trend of recasting familiar and iconic stealth voice talent and replacing them with the Kroger brand equivalent.
Who is Diana indeed?
Girl named Victoria. The agency wants her bad. I need to know why.
The fans of Splinter Cell are going to be very pleasantly surprised when they play this game.
It's an honor to be able to play this character.
They said, here, now you know, bring it, you know, and I was like, wow. I can't say a carte blanche. They didn't give me like a complete, like, you know, do what the hell, whatever you want. Of course not. You know, I do have a parameter, you know, that I have to follow.
Hey, Swedish chef.
Oh, hey, Kermit, what's going on?
I'm hungry.
Oh, that's no problem. You want some spaghetti?
Yay!
Fortunately, after fan backlash of epic proportions, non-encephalitic heads prevailed, and cardboard doppelganger William Mapother, who in a hilarious twist also happens to be Tom Cruise's cousin, was replaced by the almighty original David Bateson before the final product released.
So they went behind the backs of their then owner, Square Enix, said, listen, can we record the whole game in secret? I went, you're never going to keep that secret.
That icon suit looks totally wrong on Bosco. It's terrible casting.
Well, he's the director.
You know who they should have cast? Dave Bateson.
Why? Wait, you mean Dave Bateson? He's never even had anything to do with this franchise.
That's not the point. I'm gonna boycott this movie until they cast him. That's all I have to say on the subject.
Hey, fine by me.
Sadly, Diana Burnwood's original actress Vivian McKee would remain replaced by Naomi from fucking Lost, never to return to our eternal dismay. And it's a shame this one life to take soap opera was playing out behind the scenes, because otherwise, the voice cast was unerringly exceptional. Powers, Booth, Larry Cedar, and Keith Carradine, Deadwood, Cy Tolliver, Leon, and Wild Bill Hickok, respectively, never failed to fucking crush it. Vivica A. Fox took time away from ruining Curb Your Enthusiasm to play a mass-murdering latex latex fetish nun. Don't even ask, it was 2012. And speaking of fucking fetishes, even Tracy Lords took a break from being the guiltiest Google search you will ever make. Don't you fucking do it, you assholes. To make a turn as Tolliver's secretary. But these controversies paled next to what would be drummed up by a pre-Gamergate Anita Sarkeesian and company with their repeated tremulous shrieking of the word sexism. This in response to the initial trailers depicting the shorn-skulled assassin in question laying waste to a coterie of nuns in skin-tight latex fuck suits. Stripping these scenes of the crucial context that these women consist of a group of, oh that's right, paid fucking cutthroats, the opening volleys in what would ultimately metastasize into the Gamergate controversy had unknowingly been fired. In actuality, upon playing the game, it's clear this scene's worst affront by far was that it's merely fucking retarded, jettisoning the pseudo-sophistication of the previous entries for crass commercial sensationalism wrapped in one of the most hollow, linear stealth experiences of its era. And considering its era contains Splinter Cell Conviction and Metal Gear Flaccid 4, this is a statement as stunning as it is factual. For all the 11th hour attempts to fix the final product, Absolution was in the end a failed fucking cash grab. From its stolen mark and execute function to its QuickTime events and suffocating linearity, Abomination was a vapid, venal attempt to cash in on a wider gaming public that ironically had only been interested once with Hitman 2 when the series was still being itself. Now I've seen online claims, virtually all of which are from unsourced fucking wiki fiction, incredulously alleging that this game outsold Hitman 2 Silent Assassin, and to them I proffer the most sincere citation fucking needed in the long sad history of internet cock and bullshit. Truth is, Squeenix famously came within a conter of jettisoning IO Interactive outright after Hitman Abomination sold a mediocre 3.4 million motherfucking units, and that's the final officially reported sales figure for the fucking game thus far. Could it have sold an additional 3 mil in the years since release? Sure as shit, in fact it probably has, but is selling 3 mil at launch, then a slow trickle of heavily discounted digital copies at an outright loss over the course of a cunting decade the same as selling 7 mil outright? Yeah, not unless you use coronavirus math or your name is Hideo fucking Kojima.
Did you like it?
On the rare occasions when Absolution's levels open up, such as the underrated Chicago Chinatown mission, it's at least faintly familiar to the franchise it's failing to reboot. And thanks to its new Glacier engine, it's at least as pretty as it is pointless. But otherwise, and for every other possible reason, give it a goddamn skip. 2 out of 5. With IO in open conflict with their publisher, and sales solid but not exceptional, Squeenix's financials fell through the Earth's mantle. Eager for a fucking scapegoat, the Federation of Far East fuckwits laid the blame squarely at the feet of their Western acquisitions over at Eidos. That their Japanese division had recently released Final Fantasy XIV, among the most expensive flops ever made, and enjoyed a launch so apocalyptically awful they had to start from scratch and build the butt-fucking game again, to say nothing of its single-player sequel, which was rebuilt at least 3 times that we fucking know of in a decade, and incalculable cost in both cases, was curiously and conveniently absent from the same fucking financial report. It was time to blame the goddamn Gaijin and move the fuck forward. But a curious thing happened then. Square, with fatter fish to put on their pizza, suddenly, almost inexplicably, left IO Interactive largely alone, whether out of disappointment, acknowledgement of their own arrogance, or steadily dawning recognition that Hitman was not Metal Gear fucking Solid. In the absence of their micromanagement emerged the obvious query. Could they recapture the vaunted Hitman magic? And even if they did, given the 7-layer shit sandwich they'd served them, would the audience even care? And after 4 long years, we received our reply. The year was 2016. After an 8-year gaming crash to match America's economic one, and a media equally as in denial in reporting both, Hitman had more repair work to do than Bob fucking Vila. Absolution was an abortion, but it was also 4 years in the fucking past by this point, and as evidenced by Call of Duty crapping out inferior sequels and selling shitloads over a minor fucking engine upgrade, gamers have the long-term memory of a smack-addicted goldfish. Worse still, word soon emerged we were getting not a numeric sequel, but the most overwrought concept in contemporary media, the dreaded post-bomb reboot. Some were skeptical, myself admittedly included, of whether IO Interactive were even capable as a company of recapturing the Hitman mystique. And then the demo arrived and shut my mouthy ass up in 15 fucking seconds. Hated how linear Abomination was? Here. Have an introductory tutorial level, a skippable one might I add, set on a crowded yacht that deliberately highlights the disparate myriad murder methods available upon each playthrough. Want to sneak up behind and choke him harder than a Carradine Fap session? Do it up, asshole. Want to poison the target's drink and wait till he runs off to puke and drown him in the dumper? Don't forget the fucking flush. It was exhaustive, it was immersive, it was everything Absolution wasn't, namely, fucking fun! But it was also about as long as Ben Shapiro's Insane, with a staggeringly small roster of 6 fucking missions, and that was if you bothered to buy them all. Yes, friends? If you thought Square was done dong in this fucking series, they did micromanage in one crucial, lamentable respect. They made the one thing worse than a reboot. An episodic fucking reboot. Yes, I know that sounds bad, and believe me, it fucking is. As release models go, episodic is up there with 900 numbers, rent to own, and everyone's fucking favorite, games as a goddamn service. Fortunately, in this case, the return to the classic assassination sandbox style of earlier titles mitigated this dog shit development. Think about it. If you are going to release a game one piddly-ass penny and dime chapter at a time, what better than Hitman, just about the only franchise in the fucking Milky Way where you can waste 3 unbroken hours at a stretch exploring all aspects of a single assassination. Is it ideal? Hell no! But the Hitman IP itself saved the game in spite of Squeenix's stupidity. With the exception of notable removals such as first-person mode, dual wielding, and in my eyes the most inexcusable omission of all, keyhole peeking, Hitman 2016 was a sleeper standout, one I had flat zero expectations for, only to find myself fucking floored by its procession of imaginative and memorable missions. From infiltrating a domestic terror cell to heading off to a Parisian fashion show to bring down the fucking house.
One of my all-time favorites is the Paris level in Hitman 1 of the trilogy. The fashion
Sebastian
show
Salo, everybody.
To drop a whole chandelier because it's just so spectacularly messy.
Hitman 2016 may not have the length, but it's got the girth of a goddamn whale shark, and thanks to the protractions of time, it ain't sold episodically anymore either. No more excuses, motherfuckers. 4 out of 5 bald agency assassin skulls, the game that kicked off a murderous renaissance. If you will, after acceding to pressure from parent company Square Enix, noted developer still somehow manages to release an exceptional product in spite of their omnipresent micromanagement and indescribably retarded release model. Game releases took critical acclaim from all quarters and no small amount of success. It sells well, but not well enough. So Squeenix blames their subpar commercial performance for the woes of the entire company in their subsequent financial report, despite the Japanese division's wasting decades on subpar Final Fantasy sequels and thus hemorrhaging cash from every Asiatic orifice. Do please stop me if you heard this one before. It was then that the best thing that could possibly happen occurred. Squeenix sold IO Interactive. Finally, we screamed, a chance at independence, or at a minimum to form an equitable partnership with an infinitely less evil video game publisher. Well, it was a thought. In actuality, this ownership shakeup came as a direct response to rolling layoffs in the wake of 2 disappointing releases, and indeed, by early 2017, IO had already lost 40% of their staff in the corporate purge, and Hitman 2 was only a quarter fucking complete. On the surface, Warner Brothers' ride into the rescue seemed like a case of out of the frying pan into the butt fucking blast furnace. In practice, it appears they largely left IO alone. The result? Hitman 2. All the excellence of its predecessor, incrementally improved graphics, and a proper 8 endlessly replayable missions instead of the underwhelming 6. From dual assassinations at a NASCAR race to a next-gen reboot of Hitman Blood Money's monumental Another Life mission, and even in my personal favorite, the 007-inspired Last Resort, where 47 fills 3 body bags and an exotic rich guy resort in the Maldives, with the order of each affecting how the remainder of the mission plays out, all the way down to the fucking weather. The game also introduced elusive targets, limited time events allowing 0 fucking saves where the player is dropped into a free DLC assassination scenario and must improvise, overcome, and assassinate in a single fucking attempt. Fail? Cry harder, bitch. You got your one shot. Be better next time. At least one of whom raised more than a few fucking eyebrows during the 2016 election season as the only woman in American politics who has caused more contract killings than 47.
Target is Dame Barbara Elizabeth Keating, a New Zealand tycoon and the former Minister of Trade and Foreign Affairs.
We came, we saw, he died.
And that wasn't the only surprisingly topical inclusion in this trilogy.
I just watched an interview with that billionaire presidential candidate last night. You know, the one with the famous hairdo. That guy seems so well composed and has such a refined academic way to use his arguments, flanked with well-researched facts and figures. You know, he's honest and trustworthy. What you think?
Are you serious? I honestly think you are in need of professional help. Right here, right now.
Sadly, upon replaying the first game a year later, I learned to my chagrin that dialogue had been memory-holed by the update gods. Huzzah for digital media, separating us from our physical property rights, one Steam sale at a fucking time. It should also be mentioned at this point that the so-called reboot trilogy can in fact be regarded as one game, all run on the same engine and indeed the same menu, with all 3 allowing you to import missions from the previous games and play them with improved graphics. In essence, IO turned the albatross of Square Enix's episodic release model into arguably its greatest advantage. If you purchased Hitman 2 on, say, Steam, you could import your PC save data from the previous title and play it all in Hitman 2 with progress and unlockables intact. If you liked Hitman 1, you will love Hitman 2. Though with more missions, the trilogy's increasingly convoluted conspiracy plot gets stretched thinner than the skin on Madonna's fucking cheeks. 3 guesses which ones. 4.5 out of 5, more than the equal of its predecessor. If the previous 2 titles in the reboot trilogy were somewhat samey, Hitman 3 was, at least in my experience, the first game in some time to actually feel like its own honest-to-gonads game. And perhaps that shouldn't have taken me quite as unawares as it did. This was, after all, the dawn of a fresh, new, virtually indistinguishable gaming generation, and Hitman 3 one of the lone console exclusives in the library of the much-mocked Xbox Series S, X, and EX Plus Alpha. Fortunately for the faithful, it was also well fucking worth it. When all the dust settled and all the bodies were tucked away quietly in their conveniently placed laundry carts and/or suspiciously human-sized lockers, Hitman's third opus was the finest body bag symphony since Blood Money and by no small amount. Even the story, arguably the weakest element of the prior two outings, made some semblance of sense, occasionally providing stakes for missions that would be superb even without it. Unfortunately, there were also fucking fewer of them, with a mission total of Hitman 2 dialed back to the prior game's anemic, utterly obnoxious 6, which for a full $60 retail title is a bigger reach than Fuentes trying to see the big boy shelf at Walmart. At first glance, this should have set up more red flags than a Chinese military funeral. Upon actually playing the thing, you find that not only is each individual mission damn near game length by it fucking self, but the added elusive target arcade mode, which at long last pairs replayability with one of the more popular features of the fucking series, adds immeasurable value on top of it. Sniper assassin mode, 2-player competitive, and even for the first time VR all appear alongside it, and were implemented about as well as an Afghanistan military withdrawal. But the game itself is goddamn great. When a developer, through some Sisyphean triumph of will, somehow finds a way to provide endless alternating paths and even a series-altering final choice in an otherwise completely linear final train level, you know IO Interactive have been burning the midnight bath salts. A perfect 5 out of 5, one of the greatest stealth games I have ever experienced. With IO announced as a developer of a new 007 game, let us hope they have another hit on their hands. And given that Hitman is essentially 0047, one would think they've got that in the bag. But let us also hope that it isn't such a sky-smashing success that we've seen the last of Agent 47. For as excellent as Hitman's 3rd is, it also seems to be the setup for an even finer fucking effort going forward. That does it for today's homicidal retrospective. From birth to maturity to adulthood to death, and finally to modern resurrection. After 22 years in a 25-year-old genre, Solid Snake is Splitsville. Garrett may be gone for good, and don't get me started on the 15-year FromSoft Tenchu cock tease. Folks, fellow stealth fans, look the fuck around. Dishonored, Splinter Cell, Siphon Filter, even Stealth series with 17 times the sales. Hitman outlasted them all. So when you spot some bald dude peering at you from across the Paris Opera House, or a stone-faced milkman approaching with a syringe in one hand and a suspiciously tight uniform, fucking run! It's 2022! Milkmen only exist in gay porn and fucking Hitman games. I'm Razor Fist. God fucking speed.